Hi, I'm Dave Rossum of Rossum Electro. I'm here at NAMM talking to Analog Zone about our latest product. It's a new analog product, good for Analog Zone, called the Trident. It's a, I'll have to read it here, multi-synchronic oscillator ensemble. You can see the little label right there. This is an analog module I've been working on for quite a few months. I'm very excited about it. At its core, it's 3 oscillators. That's the oscillator ensemble. And if you want to, you can just treat it as 3 separate oscillators, but that's sort of wasting a lot of what the module does. Let me give you a quick tour of the things, and we'll get to hear some audio examples of the very interesting thing it does. It's a new kind of modulation related to ring modulation. I call it Zing modulation, and I think it sounds really wonderful. So here we have the module. We have 3 oscillators, what we call a master or carrier oscillator across the top, and then modulation oscillator 1 and 2 down below. As I say, at their basic core, they are oscillators, so we can listen to a nice triangle wave note here. I'm plugged into the triangle wave output. Variable frequency, of course. If we go down to the pulse output down here, variable pulse width. So it's a fairly simple sort of oscillator. You know, it's got Dave Rossum quality in it. It's very stable, very accurate, and so on. The modulation oscillators are a little more complicated. Let me sneak down here with both our scope view up on the TV above, and we'll take a look at here another triangle wave. I'm going to turn the synchronization off there so it looks nice and neat. This oscillator, in addition to having a nice triangle wave here, the triangle wave is variable symmetry. So we can see it on the scope view, goes back and forth. If we listen to that, it's going. I've got a little. Let's pull that out. And here we can select the wave shape via a push button. So I was there in the triangle wave. If we go to the sawtooth waveform, I'm going to turn the symmetry back to the center now. I'll go to a nice sawtooth waveform, and we can see it's a sawtooth. The symmetry also affects the sawtooth in a rather interesting way. So you can get out of these oscillators nice timbral variations in all of the waveforms, akin to pulse width modulation. The bottom oscillator is just like the upper modulation oscillator, except it's got another parameter called phase, which is really only important when we're using the Zing modulation. So let's talk a little bit about Zing modulation now. I've got my nice triangle wave up here at the top. If I modulate that triangle wave with this next oscillator down, I'm going to turn up the knob labeled Zing here. And what you suddenly see, the waveform has changed dramatically, as has the timbre. If I change the frequency of this modulator oscillator, we can hear the sync noise that you get, as well as the modulation noises on that. I'm modulating with a pulse waveform right now. We modulate with the triangle wave. We get a quite different, much more mellow sound, and then go into our sawtooth, we get somewhere in between. Now, if we start playing with the symmetry control here while we're modulating, you see we get interesting changes in the timbre there. Let's go down and modulate instead with a full. And so the whole point of the Trident oscillator ensemble is you have access to this very broad spectrum of really interesting and dynamic timbres. We have 2 modulation oscillators, so let's turn on the second modulation oscillator now. I'm going to turn down the Zing modulation in the first and turn up the second one. And here we not only have the different symmetry and frequency variations, we also have this phase knob. This is changing the phase of the synchronization. Again, you can hear all the interesting modulation of timbre that you get here. If you take it over to a pulse waveform, we're getting a sort of pitch modulation effect as well in there. And we can throw all these things together and just get really outrageous kinds of sounds out of it. Let's go over here to the sawtooth wave up here, modulate that twice. Here we go. And start doing a little dynamic modulation here as well. So that's a quick tour of the Trident. I've got a couple of demo sequences that we put together here. This one, if I turn it up over here, we're listening to an Oscillator that is now controlling the Trident oscillator. And then over here, it's much more obviously the, let's turn this down. Once again, we've got a Oscillator track over here. We pull up the Trident oscillator. Here you can hear some of the more aharmonic things you can get out of that oscillator. So that's just a couple examples that a couple of our beta testers put together for us to hear. So I'm really excited about Trident. I've been working on it for, almost a year now, and I hope people will be able to make some wonderful music with it. Thanks a lot.